All right, y'all. Today we're talking about automatic transmission fluid. So transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid is also known as ATF. That's the abbreviation. Today I want to talk about the fluid change intervals. When should you be changing it? And I also want to talk a little bit about lifetime fluid. What's lifetime transmission fluid? That's sealed transmission. What's going on there? How could that be possible? Let's dig into that. So if you drive a car with an automatic transmission, the manufacturer of that car has fluid in the transmission, and they have information about the fluid inside your service manual, which you may have to get online if you don't have the service manual in your vehicle. The information, you can also just search it online if you just do a quick Google search. But sometimes you don't get information at all on it. So what do you do when you have information on your automatic transmission and the automatic transmission fluid? Well, my advice is to follow it. If you have, let's say for example, you drive a Chevy. Most Chevys have a transmission fluid interval in the service manual of about 45,000 miles. They use Dexron 6. That's all the information about what fluid to get is inside the book or online, like I said. So just follow what the interval says. Especially if you buy the car new, that's a perfect opportunity to just start on schedule, getting the transmission fluid changed, and stay on that schedule. It's no different than any other fluid in your car. It's a fluid that needs to be changed. It breaks down over time, and it needs to be refreshed, so to speak. You wouldn't buy a car and never get the oil changed in it. So you should never buy a car and never change the other fluids either. But today we're going to focus just on the transmission fluid. So in the Chevy example, if the service interval is 45,000 miles, which it is for most of them, then you would change it at 45,000 miles, and then again at 90,000 miles, and then again every 45,000 mile interval after that. Sometimes a vehicle manufacturer will give you a yearly interval on how to change the fluid or when to change the fluid. For example, it might say 60 months, which is 5 years. It might say 45,000 miles or 60 months. Just make sure whichever one you're doing, you just kind of stay on that interval so you have some kind of record of when you've changed the fluid. This is going to be good, obviously, for making sure that the transmission lasts as long as it possibly can. And if you ever need to sell the vehicle in the future, you'll be able to. There's a few manufacturers out there that actually show you the information on the dashboard. Your fancier BMWs, Audis, some of the newer Mazdas have different intervals built into the little on-dash screen or the in-dash screen. You can use it as well. It'll track for you, and just make sure that when you get services done that you have it reset, or that you reset it yourself so that it can remind you for the time after that when it needs to be changed again. So you went and checked, and your service manual or the information you found online says that it's a sealed transmission, lifetime transmission fluid. So you should do nothing, right? Not exactly. First, we need to define what lifetime means. What is it being referred to? What's being referred to when we say lifetime? It turns out that the term lifetime is actually not referring to the fluid inside your transmission. It's actually referring to the transmission itself. When a sealed system, a sealed transmission is referred to as a lifetime, what that actually means is the fluid is designed to last as long as the transmission lasts. So far, so good, right? Fluid's going to last as long as the transmission lasts. Well, then the question that I personally would have is, well, how long does the transmission last then? If you ask your vehicle manufacturer by calling the dealership, you might find that a lot of the transmissions out there, and perhaps your car falls under this umbrella, actually don't last very long. For example, the lifetime of some transmissions might only be 30, 40, 50, 60,000 miles. If you're the type of person that buys a car for durability, this is probably not acceptable. Now, if you call the dealership and ask this question, they'll probably give you the runaround anyway. They're not really interested in telling you what the lifetime of the transmission is, because they want you to keep the car so that you can either buy a new transmission later or you can buy a new car. Even better for them, but not for you. So now that we understand what lifetime is referring to, which is the transmission and not the fluid, how do you figure out a good idea, at the very least, of what the lifetime of your transmission is? Okay, so I'm going to give you a tip that you can use to go and figure that out. So what I want you to do is I want you to go online, Google, ChatGPT, whatever car research that you can find online that you can look into for the sealed systems where the transmission fluid intervals aren't listed and the claims are lifetime fluid. Look up, you can search terms like 2020 Subaru Outback, whatever, right? I think Subaru Outback actually does have a listed interval. But for example, if it didn't have an interval listed, you would want to search people who have that vehicle, and you want to find about 11 data points. So you want to find about 11 different people online in forums and comment sections, in videos and things like that, and just kind of see when the transmission on their vehicles went out. And then I want you to write all the numbers down, and I want you to write the numbers in ascending order from lowest to highest. Once you've done that, you now have a range. The lowest number that you found and the highest number that you found seems to be when the transmission on that particular vehicle tends to go out. Now, whether or not you change the fluid after you determine this information is really up to you. If you are still quite a ways away from the range that you discovered, I would recommend going ahead and getting started on some type of interval. You can kind of set up one. For example, for my car, I don't have an interval. I do my transmission change twice a year, and I was doing it once a year. As it gets older, I increase the interval. Now, here's my rule of thumb on the transmissions. If you've started changing the fluid and you haven't noticed any issues, continue to change the fluid so that you continue to not have issues. If you've gone 7, 8, 9, 10 years and you've never changed, added, checked the fluid, it might actually be safer to not mess with it at all. We do know that transmissions tend to, they definitely wear out over time. They're high heat units, and because of that, the fluid breaks down, and so it ends up becoming kind of full of small metal particles. And in a damaged transmission, these metal particles actually help to add friction and increase the ability of the transmission to shift, but it only increases it because you've destroyed it a little bit by not making sure that it was taken care of. And so by changing it, if you remove that fluid that it's using to perform its job well, in its current form, then it's going to continue to need that fluid in it. When you do a fluid change, you're also going to want to make sure that the screen or the filter, depending on the year of the vehicle, gets changed when you do the service as well, whether you're doing it on your own or you're taking it to a shop. If the work is too difficult for you to do, or you don't want to mess up anything or misplace anything, then I recommend either taking it into a shop. You can take it into a lube shop, or you can consult somebody in your family that knows how to do it and have them do it for you. Now, keep in mind, if you have a newer vehicle and you choose, for example, to not, or a newer vehicle or any vehicle that's not at the range that you've discovered or the range that's in the service manual, then you're taking a huge risk on the transmission failing. And I want to point something out here. The transmission itself costs thousands and thousands of dollars to have fixed. Okay, the units themselves are expensive, and the men and women that work on those transmissions to fix them are highly skilled, and because they're highly skilled, they're gonna have to charge a lot of money to do it. So I want to point out 4 things for you to chew on when it comes to the automatic transmission and the fluid in your vehicle. First, expect transmission death within the range described the range that you figured out by research, and prepared to spend the money on a new unit in the future, or get ready to purchase a new vehicle. Also, plan to change the fluid. Also, plan to change the fluid if you have not reached the range yet. Assume a 50-50 risk by changing the fluid if you've already reached within or beyond that range. Also understand that by not having changed it prior, that new fluid, like I said earlier, could accelerate problems in the transmission and affect the functionality of the car. So my primary purpose in this video, I used to be a shop manager, by the way. That's why I decided to make this video. I realized that a lot of people don't want to change their transmission fluid, but they only don't want to change it, and these are certain people, because they read somewhere that it was a sealed system or that it's lifetime fluid. Okay, and I didn't say much about sealed systems. Sealed just means we don't want you to do it because the shop wants to do it. That's essentially what the dealership is doing. They kind of claim that they don't want you to mess it up, which is true. People sometimes put the wrong fluid in, but ultimately, if they answer the phone and gave you the information on the fluid that you needed, and there were easy steps to follow to change it, then I think it would be fine. But ultimately, a sealed system, the fluid's in it, so it got in there somehow. There is a way to get fluid into the system. There is a way in, there is a way out. And as far as lifetime is concerned, nothing lasts forever, including the transmission of itself. So lifetime fluid doesn't mean that it will last forever. Lifetime doesn't even mean forever. All life ends. But what it does mean is that the transmission has a life that the manufacturer knows, and you don't know, but you can figure it out, or you can determine it how I told you to do it. And you've now determined what the lifetime of that unit, the transmission unit, is, and you can make your own interval to make sure that the fluid gets changed. You can follow any kind of setup. If you've determined that it tends to die around 40,000 miles, then start changing it every 10,000, and you'll probably get 80,000 miles out of it, while everybody else is buying a brand new transmission for $6,000 and $7,000. But I hope the video has been helpful. I hope you understand what lifetime fluid means. The shops that are trying to change your fluid, yeah, maybe they're trying to make some extra money. Sometimes, you go to the lube shop and the kid there's trying to sell you on the $300 service, which is far cheaper than the unit, to be fair. But it's not just that. It's that the fluid does need to be changed. It's if your oil goes 3,000 miles, your transmission fluid's taking a beating as well. So definitely consider changing it if you are the person that expects durability and longevity out of your vehicle, especially the expensive components like the engine and the transmission. I would highly recommend that you do everything you can to take care of the vehicle that's within your capabilities. If you got it like that, if you roll deep, you can just buy new cars or whatever. That's also fine. Not telling you what to do there, just trying to give you the information so you can kind of make a better decision and kind of dispel the myth that there's a fluid that lasts, that transcends time and death. There isn't. Have a good one.